everyone, and thank you for joining us. For those of you watching after, thank you for that as well. There are a couple of things before we get started that we will need to go over. First off, this video will be recorded and posted to social media, so if you don't want your questions shared, please message me privately afterwards as soon as possible, as this video will be posted to our social media platforms tonight. Otherwise, it is to be considered legally assumed that you are consenting to your questions being posted on social media by being present on the live today. This presentation is intended to be an overview to introduce the audience to the basics of vocal cues, not a specific step-by-step instructional video. The Blind Horse Foundation will be releasing how-to videos for basic horsemanship cues with your blind horses after this presentation is released, so look out for those. Please keep your cameras off for the duration of the presentation and mute your microphone unless you are directly speaking. All of the horses showcased during this presentation have some degree of blindness, and most of them are completely blind. And then we ask you that questions and comments be held until after each section of the presentation is finished, where I will hold a section of time available for any questions. And then this presentation will be roughly an hour long, so settle in with your coffee or tea, notebook in hand, and let's get rolling. So about the foundation managers and creators. First up, we have Lindsay Davis. She grew up around horses alongside her grandpa. She learned a lot of her training style from George, a Native American horse trainer. Sorry, excuse me, I'm getting over the flu. She lives out in the Pacific Northwest of the United States. She met Marley, who is the wonderful horse that she is currently riding in the photo, in 2008, which led her to adopting a blind colt Wonder in 2020. And she has helped fellow horse people out in Central Oregon with their horses for a good few years now. And then you have me. My name is Jessie. I grew up riding. I've had horses of my own since I was 16. I've been a professional trainer for years. Blink was my first owned blind horse, as showed there, and then Blink became the catalyst for many more sight-deficient horses in my training program. So before we jump into the basic training logistics, it is important for us as our horses' owners and handlers to thoroughly understand how our horses view the world. Knowing more about the 5 senses our horses have can help explain mystery behaviors before they present. Our horses' 5 senses are usually not taught about in detail to the average horse owner as well, and even though we are focused on blind horses and horses with sight deficits, it is still important to also understand all of our horses usually born with senses as we try to develop a proper partnership with them. So, how do horses see? Horses have huge corneas, horizontal pupils, large multifocal lenses, a humongous retina area, and a large diameter optic nerve. So how does all this work together? Horses have panoramic vision, roughly 50-degree view, which means they can see almost all the way around them on both sides at all times. However, they are adapted to seeing movement over large areas and sending that information rapidly to the brain. They have 2 blind spots, most of us know this, one in front, one in back. The photoreceptors in a horse's eye can only register shades of blue and yellow, which is similar to red-green blindness in humans. The strongest color that horses can see is yellow, and they are adapted to seeing contrast and definition. Horses can also see in the dark better than humans, but worse than cats, and it takes longer overall for their eyes to adjust to changes in light. Horses do not have a strong vertical field of view. The middle section of their vision contracts to a narrow band, and they have to move their heads up and down to see around that band of vision. Now we're moving right along to a horse's sense of touch. A horse's sense of touch is the second strongest sense that a horse has. Horses have an average of thousands of touch receptors per square inch of skin, in comparison to a horse's high hundreds to slightly over 1,000 touch receptors per square inch. To top that off as well, horses have similar amounts of pain receptors to humans. Now let's get into the horse's sense of smell, which this might surprise some of you. A horse's sense of smell is one of their primary senses. Their enormous nasal passage length means that horses have the ability to hold a lot of air in their nasal passages at one time to process smells. Horses have an average of 300 million olfactory processing receptors, which is a similar number to bloodhounds, which have almost 300 million as well. Unlike bloodhounds, however, horses have an additional organ called a vomeronasal organ and nerve, which picks up and processes scents independently. So what that means is that horses process smells through two different systems within their brain. And then as well as that, a horse's sense of taste is connected to their sense of smell. So I'm sure we can theorize about the strength of that. How well do horses hear? Horses have 10 muscles in their ears to rotate them almost 180 degrees. Scientists theorize that the cone shape of horses' ears can compress sound and make it louder, much like an old air trumpet. Horses cannot hear the really low frequencies that humans can, but they can hear much higher frequencies than humans can. Horses hear at a range of 55 hertz to 35,000 hertz. What's kind of cool as well is that horses can hear bat echolocations. Clippers give off sound at 3 different ultrasonic frequencies, which can explain why so many horses are afraid of them. And to add in a little bit of a fun fact, humans that go blind tend to have their brains adapt to better pinpoint sound. My own theory as a trainer is that horses' brains also adjust similarly to humans when they lose their eyesight. But that's just a theory. So we are rolling right along with using vocal cues, as currently we do not have any live participants, but that is totally all right. I hope everyone gets to see this after. So why do we use vocal cues? Vocal cues are fairly easily utilized as a replacement for visual cues when our horses can't see us. Vocal cues are highly adaptable. You can use whatever vocal cue you want to train whatever response you want your horse to have, and the sky is the limit for creativity. They help bring subtlety back into the picture for horsemanship with blind horses. Also, vocal cues are fun to use. The next slide is the importance and application of the reward cue. The reward cue is a clear signal to the horse that they have found the response the handler is looking for. The reward cue motivates and works chemically as its own reward once it's properly installed in the horse's brain by releasing dopamine and other feel-good chemicals by association. Also, the reward cue is a clear-cut, solid base for all other vocal cues to be built off of. The reward cue can be anything, but it has to be followed by something that truly motivates the horse to search for that response from the handler again, usually food, and it must remain consistent. Food as a training tool should always be given away from the handler's body and not procured if the horse is pushing on the handler for it. Good boy, girl does not mean as much to horses as it does to dogs. Dogs find reward in recognition. Horses want to be paid, so to speak. Vocal cues and their placement in training. In horse training, there is usually a pre-cue, that is, a visual cue before the physical follow-up enforcement cue, otherwise known as the visual direction of the handler during lunging sessions before the whip comes into play to influence the horse's energy. These pre-cues eventually translate to ridden training, and in a solid training program, the groundwork cues connect to the riding cues long before the horse ever has a rider, such as yielding to the feel of a rein. Vocal cues are used before the follow-up clarification cue in place of a visual pre-cue. Timing of vocal cues. In order for your vocal cue to mean anything to your horse, the physical follow-up clarification cue has to be consistent to the particular vocal cue used. The vocal cue must stand by itself for 2 to 3 full seconds before the physical follow-up clarification cue occurs. If these two guidelines are not followed, your vocal cues will become background noise to the physical cue for your horse, which annuls the point of using the vocal cue in the first place. The reward cue must be immediately given upon the horse getting the right answer to give the horse a clear signal that they were correct. Vocal cues and voice tone. In order for vocal cues to be effective, the tone of voice when using each vocal cue has to be consistent to that vocal cue. A simplified way to apply this would be to use high tones of voice for cues for upward transitions, lower tones of voice for downward transitions, and a sudden commanding tone for whoa to ensure the whoa cue isn't lost in translation. Vocal cues can be whatever you make them, but for the ease of learning the horse, it's ideal that you do not use words that sound like each other, such as trot and stop. Support. As for learning any new skill, the easiest way for humans to do so is with a support system. It's hard to look at yourself without a mirror. Likewise, having a supporting community can help reveal communication issues between you and your horse that otherwise would be hard for the handler to see. The Blind Horse Foundation has a Facebook group giving you direct access to fellow blind horse owners and their experiences, along with Lindsay and myself for direct instruction, which, by the way, all of it is completely free. Resources and non-profit support info. Resources for this presentation have a wide range from veterinary sites and veterinarian-based podcast videos to professional training experiences and books such as The Humane Science-Based Horse Training by Elise Wielard-Muckensturm. I may have butchered that. But for a more in-depth list, feel free to message us at the Blind Horse Foundation Facebook group. The Blind Horse Foundation aims to become a nonprofit geared towards offering completely free blind horse education for any owner that needs it, both in person and virtual. To help support our cause, please visit our GoFundMe page and share our videos and posts across social media. And that concludes our presentation. Thanks for watching, everyone.
After recording Jessie here today, I want to offer encouragement to those that may be facing what seems like impossible odds with their horse's sight deficiency. I want to bring attention to the fact that there have been many owners or handlers just like you in the exact same position and feeling like you will never succeed with rehabilitating your horse, or that your horse will never truly adjust. Many of those people are now out there riding and working their horses even after blindness or partial blindness came in. Don't give up. You and your horse can do this, and we are here to help. Thanks again for watching, everyone.